The Advent season is upon us. I'm sharing a compilation of some faith-based Christmas DIYs that you can make and incorporate into your decor. Hey there, it's Donna. I'm so happy to have you here today. For this project, you're going to need a doily and some scrap fabric. I'm cutting my fabric down into a smaller size, and I'm going to be cutting it into a circle that's going to be roughly the size of our doily. So you can do this particular project in any size that you would like. You just need to make the adjustments accordingly to suit the size of your doily and the rest of your items that you'll be using. So you can see how they kind of fit together. I'm going to trim my fabric down just a little bit more because I just want this to be laying underneath the doily, so then you don't have to see all the rest of the work that's underneath. And I'll show you what we're making here in a moment. So these are fitting together fine for me. I'm now going to be using a styrofoam cone, and I picked this up at my local craft store. I'm cutting off the tip. I don't need that. But I did want the base of this. It's a perfect shape to create kind of like a dress or a skirt. I'm going to drape the doily and fabric over the top. I am going to be using a wood dowel for this. You could use some bamboo skewers as well. I'm trimming it down and I'm creating a pointy edge, and that just allows it to poke into the foam a lot more easily. I'm going to poke the doily into the styrofoam at the top just to create a hole, and then I'm going to remove it, and I'll be adding some glue to adhere that dowel into the top of the styrofoam cone that we had trimmed off. So I'm going to let that hot glue set up for a bit. Now I'm going to add the doily and the fabric, but I needed to create a hole in the fabric so then it will fit over the dowel. My doily already has a hole in the middle, but you can see that the fabric didn't have one, so I'm just trimming it up so it'll fit over the top of the dowel. And now I'm going to add my doily as well. Doing it this way really helps prevent any glue from getting onto the doily if you're wanting to avoid that. This next step, I'm going to be using some clear pipe cleaners. You just want a neutral color. Another doily that's smaller in size. I folded that doily in half and I'm going to scrunch it in the middle. You can see that I've kind of created a wing shape. I am going to be making a sweet little angel, and it is adorable. It's actually one of my favorite crafts that I've used or made for Christmas. You can see here now I used the clear pipe cleaner in the middle of the doily. Again, that's preventing me from using any glue. I know some of these doilies are heirloom pieces and we don't want to get them wrecked, so I thought I would show you different ways that you can put these together so you don't wreck the doily. So I just twisted the pipe cleaner around the dowel, and I'm going to just trim that off and twist it in around a bit more, and that'll help secure those wings in place. I have this wood bead package here. You can see I've got assorted sizes. I'm going to use the largest one in the size. I believe it's 1.5 inches. You're going to have to test and see if the size of hole will fit over your dowel, just like I'm doing right here. So again, to prevent any glue from getting on our doily, I'm adding glue at the top of our bead hole, and that will make contact with the dowel underneath and prevent the wood bead from popping off. Allow that glue to set. I've got this beautiful textured yarn, and I'm going to be making some hair by wrapping it around a piece of cardboard several times. So I have a lot of people asking me where I get my yarns from. I get a lot of it from thrift stores, believe it or not. I have picked some up at Michael's and some dollar stores as well, but this particular textured one I got from the thrift store. So I highly recommend that you check out your local store. Once you've got some strands wrapped around your cardboard, you're going to remove those strands. I'm gathering it in the middle, and then I'm going to use another piece to tie it in the middle. And then I'm going to be using some scissors to cut through the loops, and then you'll have a nice selection of some hair strands. Curious to know, what are some of your favorite family traditions that you do for the holiday season? One of ours is actually to go and find our own Christmas tree. I love to do that. All right, so our hair is all ready to go. I added some glue to the top of our wood bead, and then I'm going to just press our hair in the middle onto the top into the glue, and I'm going to just hold that down and let that set. I am going to have to just play around with our hair a bit here, but you can see it's actually really cute. It's kind of fun. I'm going to trim some up a little bit just to create some bangs, and then I will need to go in a little bit here and there with some more glue just to help to hold all our hair down. So you can see I just pulled the hair a little bit back and then pressed some of those strands into place. I'm going to continue to work on this. And just so you know, if you can't find yarn like this, you can use some doll hair. That would be a great idea too. So I'm going to be using our clear pipe cleaner again, and I'm going to twist it to create a halo for our sweet little angel, and I'm going to place this on the top. I know in images you'll see them floating above the head, but I am just going to create it the easiest way possible, and I'm just twisting my pieces together, and I'm going to just glue this at the top of her head. That will also help to hold her hair down. You can see how that works so nicely here. You can use a nice gold or silver pipe cleaner. I know you can get some vintage pipe cleaners as well, so definitely check things out to see where you can find some really pretty pipe cleaners. So I added some glue, pressed it into place. I might have to glue it down here and there yet, just again to help tack it into place. I'm trying not to use too much glue because the more glue you use, the more you're going to see it. I'm going to add some ribbon around her neck here to create a simple little bow. At this point, you can decorate her any way you'd like, really. And I know some people like to add arms to their angels, so you can kind of figure that out and add those as well. Sometimes I don't bother just because I like the whimsical look that it has. You can see how pretty she looks. You could add some vintage beads or buttons and some flowers, but I think she turned out adorable. For this next project, I am using my xTool M1 blade cutting and laser cutting machine. I've got all the links for you posted down in the description box if you are interested in checking out more about this particular machine. It is a handy machine to have. So for our next project, I am using this clove and orange candle jar that I got from Michaels. I'm now going into my files and I'm selecting a design that I had already created using fonts from Creative Space as well as snowflakes from Creative Fabric.com. You can make adjustments to the size as needed. I've already put my vinyl into place. I'm using the silver metallic and I'm moving my design into place. Now I want to make sure that I have my proper cutting weight. It wasn't reading properly, and when I first tried it, it didn't cut all the way through. So I did the user define and I adjusted my cut settings I had already shown to you there. I followed all the prompts on the screen and now we can see how well it is cutting this out. I was really impressed with how well this cut out. This is a beautiful metallic vinyl here. I just cut it out now to smaller, more workable size with my scissors, and now I'm going to weed it. So it cut through all those tiny details really well, and as you can see, it's weeding really nicely. So I've removed all those little tiny details, and now I'm just going in and I'm going to remove the rest of the vinyl, and I'm just using my weeding tool just to lift up the corner and then slowly peel it back to start. And again, I was really impressed with how well it peeled through. Or peeled off. It didn't cut through the underlayer at all, so I was so happy with the settings that I had chose for this particular vinyl. So for the next step, you're going to need some transfer paper. I am using some stuff that I had on hand already. I'm just removing the backing. I'm just going to burnish the transfer paper in place, and then I will slowly peel it back, and it worked really well. I was quite impressed with how well it adhered. And now I've already removed the label off of the candle, and I'm going to place my transfer onto the front of the candle jar, and then I'm going to again burnish it with my tool. Then I'll be removing the transfer paper, and the vinyl stayed in place. I was impressed. This vinyl is really good. I'm really happy with it. This is such a pretty silver as well. So here we go. Now we are going to decorate our candle with just some pretty strings and trims and a little bit of faux evergreen. And then we are also going to wrap it up. Dollar Tree has some new village pieces and they come pre-lit, ready to go. I am going to be covering them all with a coat of some nice smooth gesso. Now you can get this brand that I picked up from Dollarama here in Canada, but you can get one similar at Michael's, the Artist Loft brand. It is a nice smooth consistency as well. So you'll give them a coat and allow them all to dry. Now I have created a village scene out of these pieces in the past. I will have that video linked down below, and there is a cabin in there as well, but I will be getting to that next. All right, so pick out some paints in the colors that you like. I'm using warm white, and I'll be using burnt umber for the roof. I am wanting to go with some vintage colors, so I thought this warm white was so fitting. On this church, I am going to be giving it 2 coats of the paint, and I will allow it to dry well. All right, so now I'm going to paint the roofs in the burnt umber, and I gave them all 2 coats of the burnt umber. If you don't feel like hand painting these, you can definitely spray paint as desired. Okay, so the paint is all dry on all of our pieces. On this church, you can see all the beautiful texture on the roof, and I wanted to bring that to life. So I'm using some black paint, and I'm going to water it down, and I'm applying this wash using a soft bristle brush. Now, it's going to drip, so just be careful that you don't get it on the other part of the church. I'm just going to apply it all over the roof, then take a rag and gently dab it off. What this is going to do is just create a more distressed look, as if, you know, some mildew or mold had started to grow all over the roof. You can see in the corner there the difference between the wash that I did and then the roof without the wash. You can see the beautiful distressed look we created on the roof. All right, so before we do the next step, I'm going to give all our houses a coat of this matte varnish by Decor. I wanted to make sure that the craft paint was all sealed up. It is quite porous and it absorbs a lot of different things. So I needed to seal this before I do our next step. So I'm gonna give the entire piece a coat of this varnish and allow it to dry well. All right, it's all dry, and now I'm going to give the bottom portion of our church a coat of this walnut gel stain. Again, this is by Decor. I'm applying it using a paintbrush, and I'm making sure I'm focusing on the detailed parts. And then you'll need a rag and you'll dab it off. You can see it really gives it a nice aged look. So I'm just going to add a nice little bottle brush tree. I got this one from Dollar Tree. I put that in place, and then you can see how sweet it is just on its own. But I'm also going to show you how I had added it to this little village setup that I had originally done when I created this beautiful set. I love how this turned out. It's got a really beautiful vintage feel. I got this 6x6 canvas board. It's a wood canvas board from my local dollar store. I'm using this Christmas vintage or classic vintage Christmas paper pad from Michael's that I got a few years back. I'm going to be using my Fiskars trimmer and I'm going to be trimming this down to size. This is a great way to cover up a background and create a quick background and project for your Christmas decor, or if you're wanting to create a gift for somebody. So I'm just going to trim it down to the size I need. Now I wasn't exactly sure what paper I was which layout I was going to use that's on this paper. So I cut it down into 4 sections and now I'm just going to see how it looks. I have this word joy that I picked up from Dollar Tree a few years back as well. And I love these words. They're so fun. And again, it just creates a really quick and easy project that you can make for your decor or as a gift. I like to use some Aleene's tacky glue at the backing, to glue our paper backing onto the board. I'm using a plastic card just to spread it out, and I'm gonna make sure it's all nice and evenly spread out to the edge, and then I'm gonna put my paper into place. I'm gonna just line up my edges the best I can. If you don't get it exact, or if you didn't cut it out exactly, that is okay. I've got a fix for you. Now I'm using a bone folder to smooth it out, and then I'll clean off any excess glue that might have shown through. And then what I usually like to do is flip it upside down and add some weight and allow it to dry. So it's all nice and dry. I'm adding some ink that matches the paper really nicely, and I added it to the edge of the frame. Next, I'm going to add my word joy. You can use any adhesive that you'd like. I actually found that the hot glue worked just fine. I still have this project in my stash and I put it on display, and it is about, I'd say 3 years old now. And like I said, it's working well. So I'm going to add some color to the edge as well. You could paint this instead, but I just find that it just kind of creates just a bit more of an aged look. It doesn't look absolutely perfect. And then I don't have to go in and add a sanding block either. So I really like how simple this project is. You can add some ribbons and trims and some greenery if you like, but that's it. It is all ready to be put on display. All right, so I thought I would show you now how to make a fresh evergreen wreath. You'll need a wreath form and some moss, and you'll want to fill the curved side of the form. I'm just going to be using some jute twine, and I'll tie that onto the frame, and then I will wrap the twine around our form. This will help to hold the moss into place. Now you could use wax string or wire if you prefer. I'm just keeping mine simple and just using the jute twine. Once you get to the end, you'll want to tie that off in a knot. All right, so you're gonna want to use some gloves for this next project. I foraged all these evergreens, and you'll want to cut them down to size so they're a more usable size for your wreath. I've got pine boughs, boxwood, fir, and cedar. Again, I'm just going to be using my jute twine, but again, feel free to use wax twine or even wire. I just tie that onto the wreath form, and then I'll flip it over so the curved side is facing up. Now you want to gather a cluster of small pieces of evergreen, and you'll just want to layer them all together in a bunch like this. Lay it on top of your wreath form, as you can see here, and then you'll want to wrap your jute twine around the stems a couple of times, and you'll want to make sure that you pull tight. So you're going to continue to build your clusters of evergreen and then layer them on top of your wreath form. And what you're going to do is kind of offset them, as you can see I did there. And then you're just going to continue to go around your form until you have it all nice and full. So if you're not able to forage for some evergreens yourself, you can definitely pick some up at the florist or even at garden centers, or I have seen them at hardware stores as well. So I have neared the end, and I'm just going to continue to add just a few more clusters of our evergreens and tie that on. Don't worry if you have a little bit of a gap, we will be filling that in with some single stems in a bit. So I've snipped off my jute twine, and then I'm just going to tie it off onto the frame. So you'll just want to fluff up that end part there, and then you can go in and add some extra greens if any of your string is showing. And I really like to use cedar. I find that it covers things up really well. So I'll just slip those in underneath the string until I get any gaps filled that I missed. So I've foraged these rose hips and these beautiful branches that have a red tinge to them. I don't know what the branches are called. I just found them out in the forest. I trimmed them all down to size, and then what I'll do is just slip those little pieces in underneath the string. It really gives a beautiful pop of color. Now, if you can't find berries like these in your forest, then you could definitely use some artificial berries. I think that would be just as beautiful. If you struggle with getting the rose hips in, you can just snap off the thorns, and then that should help get those little stems in. Okay, now I'm adding the twigs, and again, you could add anything you like to your wreath. So at this point, if you want, you could add a bow. I just left mine as is. I love the natural look of this. And to keep it fresh, you could throw it out in the rain for a bit or in the snowbank. Or you could even take a misting bottle and spritz it once in a while, and that will help keep it fresh through the Christmas season. You can see how easy it is to add some candles, to use this particular wreath as an Advent wreath for the Advent season. You can use pillar candles, tapers, or you can just tuck them in the center on display. So for this project, you want to start off with a wood bead that is flat on one side. It's like a drawer pull, as well as a mini wood pot. And you're going to glue both of these pieces together using some hot glue. Allow the glue to set, and then give them both a coat of some paint in the color of your choosing. I am using champagne gold put out by Decor. So you can pick up these wood round beads from thrift stores, craft stores. You could probably even get a drawer pull from the hardware store. And these wood pots are from the craft store. Next, you're going to need a selection of textured yarns, as well as some fabrics. This is some lace tablecloth and some cheesecloth, as well as some coffee dyed cotton fabric. Here I have some trim with some iridescent sequins and beads, and assorted ribbons and trims and lace. These are spools of lace from the dollar stores. So I have all my pieces cut down to assorted sizes and in different piles. And what I'm going to do is choose a selection and layer them in my hand. We are going to be creating kind of like a tassel. So you will want to mix up all your different textures within your hand and layer them all together. This is gonna just look so gorgeous. Just wait until you see. Continue to layer your pieces until you get the desired look that you like. So I have all my trims and fabric and laces all put together, and some of them are too long, so I'm just pulling on one end and trimming off the excess. You can save those extra pieces for a later project. So now that you've got that all done, you are going to place a string down flat and then lay your cluster flat on top and tie the string in the middle of your cluster. I am going to be wrapping this around twice and tying it tight with a knot. So I am just going to cut some of my fabric ends on an angle. I just felt that the blunt end was just a little too harsh for this project. I've set my fabric cluster aside and now I'm focusing on the body. Again, I'm using an assortment of laces, and as you can see, there is a trim on one edge of it and they're kind of ruffled. So I am just going to start to layer these pieces and I'm going to attach them using some hot glue. We're creating kind of like a skirt look here, so I'm just adding a little bit of hot glue along the way and then pressing the edge into the glue. Just be careful that you don't burn your fingers. My glue gun is a lower temp glue gun, so it makes it a little bit easier to handle. Once you have their first layer on, you can continue on with a different lace, and you're going to start off in the same spot. This will be the back side of our angel. I'm creating a bit more of a pleated look here by pressing and squishing the lace into the glue differently. That will just add a bit more of a ruffle. So I'm going to continue to add my lace. I end up needing to use a different width lace for the top, and I will be showing you that in a moment. Okay, so for this next step though, you are going to need an eye hook. But I made a big mistake here and I'm going to show you what I did wrong here in a moment. So originally I was going to I placed my eye hook in the middle, but you don't want to do that. You want to place your eye hook towards the back of the top of the head, and that will allow the angel to hang properly. So I did go ahead and screw this into the top, and that's when I discovered that this just was not going to work. I do have a fix for it, and I will be showing you what I did here in a minute, but I just wanted to show you my correction before you yourself continue on with this project. So once you have your eye hook properly placed, you can then go ahead and add the thinner width lace here around the neck. And again, I'm just adding some pleating just to give it some more ruffle. Okay, so now I'm adding some hair. I've got this really fun textured yarn and it makes great hair. You can go ahead and use doll hair if you have some, or if you can get some at the craft store. Use whatever you like. You don't even need to add hair if you don't want, but I'm just creating some clusters, and I am going to just tie the cluster in the middle and then cut through the loops. I'm
I'm now going to create another cluster, and this one is going to go towards the back of the head. This one's going to be a lot thicker. Once you have your clusters all complete, you want to make sure you are working on the back side of your angel first. I'm just making sure that my eye hook is lined up appropriately so it will hang properly. And then I'm going to use my thicker cluster of hair and I'm going to glue that to the back side of the head. I'm just adding a little bit of glue on the underside at the back of the head. That'll help hold some strands in place. You're going to go ahead with your smaller cluster and add that into the front. Now, I did 2 separate clusters because I didn't want it to be too bulky on the very top of the head. This allowed it just to spread out nice and evenly. Okay, so now for the wings. I have a selection of just some regular natural fabric, some lace, and some coffee dyed fabric. I am going to cut these down into smaller pieces and then I will be layering them. Here I am just gathering the fabric just to check for measurements, just to see how wide I need to make my fabric. And here I'm just scrunching this fabric up. I wanted to create a bit of more of a frayed edge. And now I have folded it up and I'm just going to round off the corner. That will just create a smoother look. I like the look of the layered fabrics and the assortment of fabrics. That just goes along with all the different textures that I have in my cluster as well as in the skirt that I had created. I have all my fabrics cut down to size and layered. This piece is the back side here, and this is going to be the front. So now I am just taking a piece of string and I am going to tie it off in the middle. I just want to make sure that it's gathered so you can create a wing type shape, as you can see right here. So now I'm going to place the wings at the back side towards the head and the neck base, as you can see right here. So I'm just generously applying some glue to the middle and then I'm going to press that into the back side as shown. And you want to make sure you allow that to set well. So here I've just made a simple little lace bow and I am going to attach that at the neck. That'll just finish that off nicely. Here I decided to give my angel a bit of a bang, and I did that because I just felt like there was just too much forehead. This is completely by choice. I just preferred this look, and you'll see how it looks once I create the halo. So I'm just adding a touch of hot glue, again, just to help hold the hair into place. Okay, so now for the halo. I got this iridescent pipe cleaner from Michaels and it is so pretty. So I'm just going to wrap it around and then twist it on itself, and then I'll add a bit of hot glue and put the halo into place. Okay, so this is where I realized that the eye hook was just not going to work. So I removed it and I tried to place it back, but it just wasn't going to work. The hair was too thick, but it definitely hangs better if you place that hook towards the back. I instead ended up adding this string and just adding a good dollop of hot glue. And you can see how I'm fixing my mistake here. And I'll add hot glue and put that into place, and it ends up hanging just fine. So if you do end up making the mistake, then you can fix it And if you want, you could also glue a string on the backside of the head instead of the eye hook, but I really wanted to create a sturdy hanger, but that was my own fault. I should have tested things out before I continued. So I wanted to add just a little bit of another vintage touch by adding this beautiful vintage button to the middle of that bow. And now we are going to add our gorgeous cluster. So you're going to want to flip the skirt back as we have a few times. Generously add some hot glue to the inside of our wood pot. And then you will want to gather your cluster at the top here and then press it into the inside of your pot. Here I'm using my finger just to really push it inside, and that will keep it all together. Now I am just folding the skirt down and she's ready to hang on your wall for the Christmas season. I think she's absolutely gorgeous. I am so happy with how this turned out. I can't wait to hang it up in my master bedroom, where I love to add romantic, shabby chic, vintage inspired Christmas DIYs. For this project, you're going to need a selection of some branches, and you want them to be fairly straight. I'm going to be measuring one that is around 6 inches and another one at around 4 inches. And as you can see, I am creating a cross. The Advent season is a really important time to my family, but so is Easter. And I thought this would be a great way to commemorate both. So as you can see, I glued the 2 sticks together, and now just for some added strength and stability, I'm using some crochet twine or string, but you can use anything that you have that you like. Embroidery floss would be pretty as well. And as you can see, I tied it on, and now I am wrapping it around the cross section, and that will really give it a lot of strength. I'm now just going to tie it off with a simple knot, and then you can trim off the excess. So I have a large selection of some different tags, and I just wanted to show you the different types that I have here. I've got wood ones and craft paper. You can get all different colors and types. I'm just going to show you here as well what each type would look like. I really like the craft paper, and I decided to go with the smaller one out of this selection. So I wanted to stamp out the words that go with each Advent theme: joy, love, hope, and peace. They may be slightly different for you, and that is fine. Just adjust accordingly. And I had just some words that already had joy and love, but then I went into my peg stamps and spelled out the other words that I needed. I also wanted to add just a little bit of a decorative touch, so I'm just going into my stash of stamps and finding some Christmas greenery, and I'm going to be using black ink and just stamping onto the tag as needed. Now I am going to have some links for you if you want to know more about the Advent season. And I hope this is a beautiful and blessed time for you if you celebrate. So now I decided that I wanted to ink up the edges, so I'm just running my ink pad all around the edge, just like you saw there. And now I'm just going to allow that to dry a little bit, and then I'm going to get my string. Again, I'm going to be using the crochet string again, and I'm going to tie my little tag onto the cross. I did a knot first because I found that it kind of didn't hang quite right. So when I was kind of playing around with this, you can see here I was fiddling around, and I just didn't like the way that was hanging. So I decided, you know what, I'm gonna tie a knot first, and that just kind of provided some stability around the tag without it kind of flopping around on the string. Next, I then tied the string around the cross section, and again, I just tied a knot. So I just thought that this was a beautiful way to remember the Advent season and remember what Christ had done for us. So to do that though, I need to attach a hanger. So my plan was to add one to the tree each weekend as we celebrate the Advent season. So for the hanger, I've just folded my string in half, and then I'm going to tie the 2 strands and make a knot. I'm just adjusting the knot accordingly so then I know it's long or short enough for a hanger. I'm adding just a dollop of hot glue on the top of the stick and then pressing the little knot in place, and then it's ready to be hung on the tree. I also included one tag for Christ. For this next project, you're going to need a wood slice. This one is approximately 6 inches across. I am giving it a coat of some black chalk paint, and I'm painting right up to the edge as close as I can. Feel free to use some craft paint if that's what you have, but I just like the coverage that the chalk paint gave, so that's what I decided to go with. I allowed it to dry, and next I wanted to create some beautiful splatters using this iridescent gold by Peebo Paints. I picked this paint up at Michael's a couple of years ago, and I really love this antique gold color. I'm just diluting it a bit with some water, and then using a stiff bristle brush and another handle, I am just adding some splatters to the surface. I wanted it to kind of look like a beautiful starry night. I'm going to allow that to dry well, and then I am going to now create a manger. I already pre-cut my pieces from some vintage book paper. Now, the manger is the feeding trough for animals, and that is the place where baby Jesus was laid to rest. So I wanted to create kind of the wood slats as if it was actually made from wood, not a piece of paper. So I'm just adding some lines using a Sharpie, and that I'm hoping will create kind of like a woodsy look. What I am creating right now is actually called mixed media art. It's something I absolutely love to do. It's where you just take different mediums and create a piece of art, and it's so forgiving. So for the manger, as you can see, I added some gel paint, and I'm doing the same techniques on the legs of the feeding trough or manger. And I'm going to place them to see where I like them on the wood slice. And I'm going to attach them using some matte decoupage glue. Now I'm just being careful where I do place the glue because I didn't want to build up too many layers to distort the beautiful starry night that I had created. So I'm just applying the glue exactly where I kind of needed it, as you can see me doing right here. So I didn't bother adding any glue over top. I just did the undercoat, and then while the glue is drying, I am going in with my pencil and I am creating a star. Like it's a nice, bright, shining star in the night sky. Next, I am now creating the silhouette of baby Jesus. I just did a head and the swaddled cloth, as you can see right here. I just kept it simple, and I think it's just so effective. Next, I am going to be using some modeling paste. Now, modeling paste is very textured. It's kind of gritty. I wanted to give some texture to this piece, so I added the modeling paste over the lines that I created using a mini palette knife. You don't have to do this step if you don't want, but if you are looking for some modeling paste, then you can pick this up at Michael's. It's the Artist Loft brand. I think it's a great affordable way to try it out. Next, I'm applying some of the modeling paste just on the edge of the manger to make it look like it's hay. And of course, you could just paint that in if you choose. It's completely up to you. This is mixed media art, so you can do lots of different techniques. So now I am going to start to paint my images in. I'm starting off with some skin toned paint for baby Jesus' head. Of course, feel free to use any colors that you would like. And then I am going to add tan for the swaddling cloth. Now, it might almost look the same in the video, but they are different once you look at them close up. I do end up having to paint them in a couple of times, drying in between. So I just wanted to create a bit more texture and dimension where the manger is. So I'm just going in and adding a bit of the tan color over top, just to kind of make it look like it's been old and sitting around for a while. So now I'm just going in and adding just a little bit more paint. This is a lighter shade, a cream color. Again, you just want to create some dimension. So now everything is dry. I am going to now add antique gold and cream over the area where there is the hay on the edge of our manger. I'm using the two colors to just, again, create some dimension. Next, I'm going in with my gold acrylic Peebo paint, and I'm going to go over the star. Now, as I was doing this, I realized that perhaps I should have maybe tinted my modeling paste with the paint, because I actually did kind of struggle a little bit painting this and making sure I had full coverage. I added just a hint to the outside of the star shape just to make it look like it's really glowing in the sky. I'm now adding a little bit of that gold paint onto baby Jesus. I just wanted it to look like the star was glowing down on him and just bringing in all that glory to earth. I've allowed that to dry, and now I'm going in and I'm just using my black Sharpie to outline. That just really helps to make everything pop. So you can see I'm just going around the manger, and then I will go around baby Jesus. I give the entire piece a coat of some matte varnish, and then it's ready to be put on display, and I am absolutely in love with this piece. For this next project, I am using these canvas sheets from burlapfabric.com. They have a coupon code for you, $5 off on a $5 purchase or more, and that is good till February 28th. I'll have all the links for you down in the video description box. So these canvas sheets are printable. So I created myself an image in Canva, and all I did was typed up "Oh Holy Night," chose the fonts that I liked, and then I just arranged them on an 8.5 by 11 inch graphic. And then I am inserting some stars that are free to use. These are all free to use within Canva. I saved it to my computer, and then I printed it. Now, I did end up printing it down to the size of a 5x7 for the project that I am using, but this was my test image, and I have to say I was blown away at how well this printed. It is laminated on the back, so that's why it went through the printer so easily. Here is my image in a smaller size, and I wanted to place it inside of this wood canvas panel I picked up from Dollarama here in Canada. You can get these online and at other craft stores as well. I needed to trim it down to size, so I'm just figuring out my measurements, and I'm just going to mark it off with a pencil. So now that I have my size figured out, I'm just going to trim it down using some scissors, and I'm going to set any scraps aside for later use. Right, so now I'm going to give my canvas board a coat of the gel stain in the color Walnut. I will use a combination of a paintbrush to get right in all those crevices, and I'll be using a rag to remove any excess or actually to even apply it. I really love walnut stain. I think it's such a gorgeous color, and this particular brand is from Decor. I'm also going to be doing the sides and the back. All right, so I'm allowing my canvas board to dry. Now I'm going to just add a little distressing onto the canvas sheet that I made. So I'm using some archival ink, and I'm just using a sponge, and I'm just applying it to the edge. And you can kind of see how it just adds just enough texture and interest around the edge to make it look like it's distressed. So now I'm going to adhere the canvas sheet to the panel, and I'm applying it using some tacky glue. Just going to spread it out using a card. You can use a piece of cardboard as well, and then I'll put it into place. I just made sure that I added the glue right up to the edge of that canvas sheet. I'm going to just smooth it out using a bone folder, and I'll just remove any excess glue that might pop out, and I'm going to allow that to dry. All right, our piece is all dry. Now I'm going to add my favorite little touch, and that is branches. I had foraged these on a nature walk just on some trails that are really close to my home, which is awesome. And I'm just trimming them down to size, and then I'm going to use some hot glue to put them into place. You could add some moss to this as well. I think that would be a really pretty touch. I think a project like this is so versatile. You can put any type of quote on the inside or choose your favorite Christmas carol and print it out. I think that would just be so beautiful. I think also you could put some sheet music in behind the printout as well. I think that would be beautiful. So I'm just going to continue to add some branches here and there until I get a look that I love. Here is a recap of all of our projects. I really enjoyed creating all these beautiful Nativity and Advent DIYs for this beautiful Christmas season. So I picked up this jar sign in the fall section at Dollar Tree, and I am going to decorate both the front and the back side of this. I'm going to start off by removing the jute twine hanger. So now before I move on, I'm going to be doing the other side of our sign. Again, I'm using this paper pad, and this is the pattern I selected. So I've already gone ahead and done the same steps to cut out my jar, and to create my lid, I decided to use this foil tray that I picked up from Dollar Tree. Again, I'm using my template that I cut out from my previous lid, and I'm going to use my pencil to trace around it. You could definitely use fabric or ribbon or whatever you have on hand, but I thought the foil would create a really neat texture to our sign. So using my scissors, I'm just going to cut the lid out And just be careful because the edges are actually really sharp. So I wanted to tone down the shininess of the foil, so I'm going in with some light gray and off-white craft paint with a paintbrush. You can definitely use a foam brush if you prefer. And then I'm going to go in and dab off the paint using a rag. Now I did find that the craft paint didn't adhere that well to the surface of the foil, so I do have a trick up my sleeve to show you here in a bit, but I'm just going to continue to apply the paint until I get the desired look I like. Once the paint has dried, I am then going to distress the edges using this distress ink, and it's the frayed burlap color. I'm just using a makeup sponge and I'm carefully applying it to the edges. You don't want to overwork it because it will remove the craft paint, so just be careful while applying the ink. So once you have the desired look, you can then use a combination of some tacky glue and some hot glue to adhere the foil to the surface. Now, the hot glue will dry quite quickly on the foil, so you'll have to work really fast. And here I'm just pressing the foil into the glue. I flip it upside down just to press firmly, and then you can continue to distress the edges if you like. I just thought that this would tie it all together really nicely. I do the same on the autumn side or the fall side of our sign as well. So once I realized that the craft paint was kind of lifting, I decided to seal the surface of our foil. So I'm using this matte varnish that I got from Decor. You could definitely use some spray paint as well, but I'm carefully dabbing the varnish onto the surface of the foil. I'm being very careful because I don't want to lift any of that paint any further, and then you're going to allow it to dry well. So once the varnish is dried, I am now going to use a bamboo skewer and punch through those holes. So then I have a place to put my hanger back in place. If the foil lifts, just go ahead and reapply some hot glue, and that will help adhere it again. Just going to continue to punch through until you can see through that hole. So Dollar Tree's been bringing out these really beautiful galvanized words from season to season, and I wanted to dull down the shininess of the tin. I'm using some archival ink in the potting soil color, and I'm applying it to the surface using a makeup sponge. Continue to apply the ink until you get the desired look, and then allow it to dry. So now I'm going to adhere this peace word onto our sign. I'm going to use a combination of the tacky glue and hot glue. Again, you are going to need to work really quickly when you're using the hot glue, as I find it dries really fast on the galvanized tin. If you find that it isn't sticking because the glue dried too quickly, just feel free to slip your nozzle from your glue gun underneath the lettering and apply a little bit and then press it down. Again, you want to work very, very quickly. Just be careful that you don't burn your fingers. Now, just for a final little touch, I am going to use these wood snowflakes, and I like to color these snowflakes using some ink, and I'm just pressing these snowflakes into a white ink pad. I find it just works really, really fast instead of digging out my paint. And then using my hot glue gun, I am going to apply these little snowflakes onto our sign. And then for a final little touch, I am going to add a jute twine bow. You can put your jute twine hanger back in place and it's ready to hang. I love being able to create some versatile DIY projects for my home that I can use for multiple seasons. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I have.
I had created this particular project, probably was one of my first ones I had ever done, and I still have it and I still love it. You're going to need a cylinder vase, and I'm going to be using some foil adhesive. And what you do is you make sure that your jar or glass, whatever you're using, is nice and clean. And then I'm going to be using some metallic flakes that I got from my local dollar store called Dollarama, but you can get some metallic flakes from the craft store, such as gold leaf. I am going to apply this adhesive onto the cylinder vase. This is just a really inexpensive vase, but you could do this on a jar as well. I'm going to be giving a coat of this adhesive to the inside of this vase. Now, this glue does have a bit of an odor, so you want to make sure you've got some good ventilation when you use it. I did pick this up at Michael's a few years ago, and it is the Renaissance brand, so you can check to see what you can find. I know some people have used some Mod Podge as well, but I prefer to use the actual gold leaf adhesive, or also known as foil adhesive. So I've applied the glue to the inside of our vase, and now I'm going to allow it to dry, and you want to let it dry till it's tacky and clear. You can see when it was wet, it did have a cloudiness to it, and that cloudiness should disappear. So now I'm going to add my silver metallic flakes, and I'm being very careful here. You can see I've got a paper towel on my surface to collect any of the extra bits. I'm just going to dump some into the vase, and then I'm going to start to add them to the side. I'm going to be using a paintbrush. You can see how it's sticking to my fingers. It actually can get kind of messy, but I don't know, it's just so much fun to do this. So you can see how I am just using my brush to adhere it and press it into the adhesive. This was a bigger piece here. It was just all crumpled up, but you can use sheets of this. I know I've seen gold, silver, and I think I've even seen this in rose gold too. That would be really fun too. Another option would be to use some spray paint. That would work really well if you want to create just a metallic finish on the inside, or you can just use some regular acrylic paint as well. So once you have all of the metallic flakes and the glue covered with those flakes in place, you're then going to need a rag. This is just a soft cloth rag, and you can see I'm just dumping out any of the excess, and then I'm going to be using my rag, and I'm going to burnish the inside. So burnishing is just rubbing the cloth until it removes any of the excess, and then it also just helps it to stick better and makes it a bit more shiny. So I'm just going to continue to rub that down, and then clean out any of the excess debris as I go along. So I have it all cleaned up, and at this point you can leave it as is and add some beautiful lights to this. You can add a battery operated candle, or you can add some battery operated fairy lights. Either one would be very, very pretty, but I just added one extra little touch to create more of a faith-based DIY. And so I'm going to show you how simple it is just to add a simple little touch, either vinyl or stickers, to transform a piece like this for some faith-based Christmas decor. So you can see how well this has held up. I'm really happy with it. I had these clear stickers in my stash, and I happen to have one that says "Joy to the World," and it has these pretty little grove of trees on it. I love that sticker, so I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna add that to this jar just to recreate it and give it a fresh look. And then I have another piece for my faith-based decor. So I'm just gonna add my battery operated light, and you can't quite see the flicker of the light here, but you can see how beautiful that sticker stands out against that vase. I have these wood planks that I got from Dollarama, but you can get them from Dollar Tree as well, along with the tumbling blocks. I am going to be laying out the tumbling blocks flat as shown, the length of my wood plank. I am then going to glue those tumbling blocks together to form a bottom. If you're new, I want to say a big welcome to you, and you could tap on the subscribe button to become a part of my community. And if you tap on the bell, it'll keep you up to date with everything I have to share. You can see that it forms a nice bottom for a little wood crate. I'm now going to add some tumbling blocks to form the sides of my crate. It took about 4, as you can see here, and I'm going to glue those together. Once you have the 2 ends formed, you are going to adhere those to the bottom platform that you created using the other tumbling blocks. Glue them together as shown. Working quickly, you're going to want to add some hot glue and attach the wood planks to your base that you created. Once you have the 2 side panels attached, you're going to go inside the little wood box that you created and add some hot glue. This way here, you know, everything will be attached really well. I am now going to be mixing some chalk paint and some antique white to create a bit of a softer green color. And I'll mix those 2 together and then apply a 1 coat to the crate that I created. I gave 1 coat of paint to the exterior of the box. I didn't worry about the inside. Once dry, I had decided that I would use this piece metal sign that I picked up from Dollar Tree at Christmas time last year. Using a little bit of hot glue, I am just attaching it ever so carefully. I didn't use hot glue directly to the metal piece because it cools quite quickly before I can get it attached to the box properly. So I'm just adding little dollops of glue as I go along by lifting the metal piece up and then attaching along the way. I'm just snipping off the end of the E as it was a little bit too long for the box. I had these salt and pepper shakers in my stash from a local dollar store, but you can pick them up from Dollar Tree. I'm removing the lids and then placing them inside my crate. You could glue them into place if you choose. I'm now going to add some preserved reindeer moss, and that will help hold the jars in place. So I wanted to add some Christmas evergreens that I had foraged from the forest. I'm going to have that video linked down below so you can see that. But I'm going to just trim them up and I'm going to add them inside these little jars. Now you will of course need to add water to these jars and keep an eye on that water level to make sure that your greens don't dry out. In this moment, I actually don't have any water in these little jars, but I just wanted to show you how simple it is to add just a little bit of greenery to these to create a really beautiful and festive look. I'm adding my moss to this now, but as you can see, as you saw before, I added the moss. I probably would have done it before I did this part here, but it would have made it a little bit easier. But you know what? You just got to make do with what you've got and how you do it. So I'm adding a little bit of some twine around the base. Oh, sorry. Yeah, the base of the greenery at the top of the jar. I just wanted to hide the screw tops of these little jars. So I'm just adding some beautiful green twine and that's it. I love how simple this was to put together. I'm going to be altering these village houses from Dollar Tree. So I will be demonstrating how to do this technique on one of the houses. I'm starting off with the Artist Loft white gesso from Michaels. And I really like this gesso. It is really nice and smooth. And you're going to give the house 2 coats, allowing this to dry well in between. Once the gesso is dry, I am now going to use this Decor silver paint. You could use spray paint, but I wasn't sure how a certain technique I will be showing would react with the oil-based spray paint. So I'm just choosing to use acrylic. So I'm going to be giving the house 2 coats of the silver paint and allow to dry well in between. Okay, so now I am going to be using this espresso brown craft paint I picked up at the dollar store, and I'm going to be using a little bit of water, and I'm just going to mix a little bit of water into the paint to create a wash. I am going to coat the house with the wash and then use a rag to dab this off. Now, this is where I wasn't sure how the paint would react to spray paint, hence the reason why I chose to use acrylic products. You can see how the paint gets right into all of those grooves, creating a really nice rustic look. I'm using some of the thicker paint and I'm getting that right into the corners, just like you would naturally see a vintage piece where all the grime would kind of collect in the corners. And then I'm going to just continue on using the wash and the rag to create a really rustic finish. So of course, since we've got this lovely church again that we had already once recreated into something beautiful, I wanted to show you how you could create just a beautiful wintry scene using a church inside of a large cylinder vase. So I've just added a wood slice to the bottom just to create a nice base, because the cylinder vase that I have was not flat on the bottom. It did have a bit of a curve and my little church was kind of wobbling a bit. To hide the wood slice and again to create a nice beautiful wintry scene, I'm adding some faux snow. Now I'm going to be adding some battery operated lights as well. This is just a strand of 20 that I picked up from Dollar Tree. I'm going to put the battery pack towards the back of the church and then you can hide it with the snow. Now you could hide some of the lights in amongst the snow as well. That would create a really, really pretty glow. But all I did was just kind of tuck the lights here and there. And since it's wire, you can adjust the lights accordingly to suit what you like best. I'm adding just a bit more faux snow to cover the battery pack. And it's easy enough to access the switch to turn it on and off. Now I'm turning the little light on in our church and I'm going to put it back into place. Again, put the lights in around it, and it's simple as that. You've got a beautiful, whimsical, faithful little wintry scene that you can put on display. You could add some trees inside and some pine cones, but I really like the simplicity of how this looks. And here is how this village looks all together. I love how it looks. It turned out so vintage looking, and I think it's just absolutely beautiful. I have some more village videos for you to check out. I will have those linked for you down below at the end of this video. I want to thank you all so much for joining me today, and we shall see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.